to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, May 30th, and this is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by my co-host and analyst, CJ the Hitman Hickman and Jason Cabrera. What's up, guys?
What's going on, Griffin?
Not much. I am excited to get to the show today. We have an amazing show for everybody. We're going to be continuing, as we have been for the last handful of episodes, our look at our early consensus rankings, specifically the second half of the wide receiver position. So things should get a little bit more, well, it got a little spicy towards the end of last week's episode. So it should continue along that trend going forward. So that's exciting. People get a little uncomfortable. And guys, we're all friends. We debate. It's just what happens. But let's move on. It's a good time. We're also, of course, going to be bringing you all the NFL Top 100 reveals from last night, all the top headlines from around the league, lots of stuff to get to today, and we're going to try and fit it in. I say that every single week. Never happens. We'll see what happens. As always, please make sure you guys subscribe. You know, it just saves you effort having to go and find and refresh and download. If you just subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, whenever there's a new episode, you'll know about it. So that's the easiest thing to do. And, give us a rating and review, and we'll give you a shout out on the show. Everybody wins. You can follow the show on Twitter at the FF Fanatics, the easiest way to get the up-to-date information in between shows or interact with us. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Fantasy Football Fanatics. Join the community over there. And, of course, if you want a much more in-depth show every single week, some user-requested topics, a lot more perks, things of that nature, and you want to just, go that extra mile to help support the show, head over to patreon.com/the Fantasy Football Fanatics. You won't regret it. That's all I'll say. We'll leave it at that. Let's move on. Since we have so much to get to today, we're going to skip the warm-up, and we're going to move right into our top headlines from around the league, starting with the league headlines of NFL Top 100. So that aired last night, numbers 50 through 41. As always, I'm going to read them off. We'll jump back at the ones that stood out to us, and we'll keep on moving. Number 50, Marcus Mariota, quarterback Minnesota, unranked a year ago. 49, Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end Tampa Bay. Hey, Tampa Bay. No, he's Houston. What am I talking about? Oh, that's wrong. Unrated a year ago. Okay, well, at least I know enough to know when I make a typo.
Good job.
It's about time. Former number 1 overall pick finally making the list. Number 48, Jordy Nelson, wide receiver Green Bay, unrated a year ago. Trent Williams, offensive tackle for Washington. He moved down from 45 to 47. Not really a real drop there. Number 46, Michael Bennett, defensive end Seattle. He moved down from moved up from 59 to 46. Number 45, Larry Fitzgerald, wide receiver Arizona. He dropped from 27 to 45. Number 44, Cam Newton, quarterback Carolina, was number 1 a year ago, dropped all the way down to 44. Number 43, Marshall Yanda, guard, Baltimore. He was 37 a year ago, so a little bit of a drop there. 42, Jarvis Landry, wide receiver from from Miami. He was 98 a year ago, so quite the jump there for him. And number 41, Devonta Freeman, running back Atlanta. He was 50 a year ago, so he moved up just a little bit. So, guys, what stood out to you on this list?
Well, got Marcus Mariota. Talented young quarterback, man. We saw the development of his game, and he took it to a next level. This was almost a playoff team just because of him and the unfortunate accident with his leg, man. And then you got Jadeveon Clowney, man. I still think you still haven't really seen the best out of him, just because J.J. Watt. They both have yet to play a full season together. With both of them healthy, and I think that's going to be just a tear on the league when you got both of those guys healthy going in. Another guy of course, I like Jarvis Landry, man. We talked about him a lot. No, we're getting ready to talk about him. Sorry, but this guy, he's one of the best slot receivers in the league, and I know a lot of people got a lot of questions about building your team from the slot out. But this dude is just that guy in that Miami offense, man. A reliable, dangerous player as far as being a receiver, man. He plays bigger than what he is. I like that out of him. And then you got Devonta Freeman, a guy that we talked about in our last running back, when we were talking about them rankings. I know we got a lot of questions on our YouTube page that they talk about this guy. I know both of you guys don't think that he deserves elite running back money. I can agree with that, but he's just a good running back that complements that offense. And I think, he's got to get paid for something. Because he's just fits, and he's that guy when it comes to that offense.
I mean, I don't say he doesn't deserve it. He'll get paid it. I mean, you're going to pay the guys what they're worth on the open market to keep them. I don't know. He's in a committee, so, I mean, it's debatable. I would not put him on the same level as a Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson. That's all I'm saying. I think he's upper echelon.
No.
So, what about you, Jason? What stood out to you?
Well, I agree with a lot, especially Jadeveon Clowney. I love Jadeveon Clowney, and with Watt and Clowney coming off, just like what CJ was saying, that is going to be deadly. Michael Bennett is one heck of a defensive end. He played very well last year. I mean, he's just a terror. I mean, he can drop back and be a linebacker. He can go be a defensive end. So all over the place. Really, really good player. Cam Newton dropping from one down to about halfway through the list is kind of what I expected. He's still got to be considered one of the better quarterbacks as far as talent-wise, but they're trying to force him to be something he's not this year, and I'm just concerned that he may slip even further because of that. And of course, I got to talk about Larry dropping from 27 to 45. Doesn't surprise me. Didn't have the greatest year. However, even despite that, 107 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, he just always gets it done. He's very consistent, and he gets a lot of respect. So good to see him on there too.
Yeah. Jadeveon Clowney, it's about time. Marcus Mariota, with all the weapons he's been given this offseason, I expect him to potentially climb higher. Jordy Nelson, I feel like he is very underrated here. He was not on the list, obviously, a year ago because I was coming off injury. But, he's a monster. How can he only be 48? Crazy. Trent Williams is a beast of an offensive tackle. They showed the highlight of him punching Richard Sherman in the face, which just makes me like him more because I'm not a fan of Richard Sherman. Let's see, Michael Bennett. We know that he is easily one of the best defensive ends. Larry Fitzgerald, he's amazing. You can't say enough good things about Larry Fitzgerald. Cam Newton, I honestly expected him to drop more because there was such a huge drop-off in his production from when he was the number one last year when they made this list. Marshall Yanda, he has been rated as the highest guard on this list for a couple years. He's made the Pro Bowl for 6 years in a row. Most people consider him, and I mean, I'm a Ravens fan, so I might be a little bit biased, but I agree that he's the best guard in the league. I'm actually amazed that he didn't drop more than this. And it shows a lot because he suffered a shoulder injury, and instead of just going on IR, sitting out, whatever, he shifted from right guard to left guard, still played at a Pro Bowl level, and played through the injury just on a side where he wasn't going to take as much wear and tear on the injury. So, I mean, he's amazing. Jarvis Landry, he is slowly working his way up, getting respect of his peers. You'd love to see that, especially from a slot guy, not one of those big play guys. And Devonta Freeman, we've spoken about at length. So, good list, and it's continuing to get more and more interesting. This is also, I think, the first week where it hasn't been more unrated guys than guys who have moved up or down from the previous year. So we're finally getting into some of those more consistent guys who have been on the list. Interesting. Let's move on. NFL rule change that we forgot to mention on Friday's show. Remember, we said we recorded that one a little bit early. We didn't get all the facts. They did add also a second IR designated to return spot. Now, this was a big deal that we talked about during last year's offseason. I'm sure at this point we've all experienced this. Different websites handled it in different ways. Certain sites, if you work the injury designation slot, it can be if someone's out for a game. Others, it can be they have to be actually on IR. So it's something to monitor. But this is big because you have to hold on to your guys because you don't know if they put someone on IR and you drop them, then like, oh well, we're gonna actually designate him to return. They don't have to do that right away, and so you have to pay attention to just how serious the injury is and determine if it really is a year-ending injury. So it's just making us have to dive in that much more consistently, because once the teams used it last year, we could just move on and be like, oh well, he's hurt, he's on IR, he's gone, whatever. Now it's just that much more analysis that we're gonna have to. Really, this is just tougher for us, but it's gonna be a nice impact for all fantasy players out there. So pay attention to injuries, guys. If you know doctor friends, consult them. Let's move on. Quarterback news. Kirk Cousins says that Terrell Pryor is, quote, a joy to work with. So this is good news considering a lot of the rumors that we heard out of Cleveland was that he was a very negative impact in the locker room. So good repertoire between Terrell Pryor and his new quarterback. Could fit nicely with another statement that Kirk Cousins made saying that he wants to get Terrell Pryor as many touches as possible this year. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I think Kirk Cousins is just a cheesy person. I mean, you watched his his thing on the top 100. He's like high fives for everyone.
You like
during
that?
the train.
You like that?
So I mean, fantasy wise, this is gold. Terrell Pryor, he had a good season, a breakout season with Cleveland. So if he can be able to, get that connection with Kirk Cousins, that's going to be good for you.
Jason?
Yeah, one of the things Kirk said about that is that Terrell Pryor being a former quarterback really helps a lot when they're talking. He said he's never had a more intelligent wide receiver who could just, shoot the jargon back to him. So he just understands the coverage and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's true. I mean, that's going to be nice to have at the receiver position. You basically got two quarterbacks talking to each other and working well together. And I have a lot of faith in Kirk Cousins. So I think Terrell Pryor is going to be a heck of a weapon for him.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? Let's move on. The Cleveland Plain Dealer has said that Deshaun Kaiser is, quote, on the fast track to win the starting job in Cleveland. You guys think that this is real? Do you think he has an actual chance to get the starting job week 1?
I mean, it's believable. Anybody can do anything there.
He's got a chance. I mean, what else do they got? You know what I mean? Osweiler's got a chance. Kessler's got a chance. They've all got a chance. That's not saying much at this point. I mean, that's basically like them saying, one of our 4 guys is going to start at quarterback. It's like, yeah, we're aware of that. So as far as will it be Kaiser, it remains to be seen. I mean, the guy is a rookie. I highly doubt he'll start. I think he may end up starting during the year, but I don't think he'll start out as the starter.
I mean, we shall see. That'll be half the fun. No running back news. Let's move on to wide receiver news. Michael Floyd, house arrest, has been moved to Minnesota. Obviously, he was signed by the Vikings, so, I mean, at least he is in the area. I don't know. It doesn't really do much for him, but he's relocated, apparently. Victor Cruz has signed with the Chicago Bears on a 1-year deal, so Chicago adding even more wide receiver depth to that backfield. So I would say this is a good signing for Victor. It gives him an opportunity to get into a place where he'll probably be the number 1. He'll get a lot of volume because he a lot of the interviews, I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of his offseason stuff since he's left the Giants, but he's been talking about how he was actually a lot healthier than they let him show last year, and that he's now that much stronger with another offseason conditioning. He still believes he's that elite guy, and a 1-year deal in Chicago where there's not a lot of elite competition, maybe it's an opportunity for him to up his bidding price for offseason next year. What are your guys' thoughts on this move?
I mean, I've been talking to people about it. They ask me what I think. I think it's a smart move on Chicago. This was a veteran receiver, a Super Bowl champion, isn't he? No, it wasn't. He wasn't there before that. But he's a veteran receiver. I mean, you got a bunch of young kids there that are still, not quite on that level yet. I mean, one of the big names there that they drafted high is Kevin White. I think, if you pair him up with Victor Cruz, Victor Cruz can be able to mentor him and hopefully you try to get the best potential out of the kid because they think this talent's there, and then he probably just be able to rub off on all the other receivers that are there. But I mean, that's what I see on Chicago's part. I think it's smart just because you're bringing a veteran receiver and they can still work and they can be able to help out the rest of your group.
He was with the team when they won their most recent Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they did. I thought so. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason, any thoughts?
I mean, like we said before, Chicago is kind of, they're kind of shopping out of the bargain bin with their wide receivers. In this case, I think they found a pack of cookies, and they're like, oh, look at that. Oh, man, $2, So I like Victor Cruz. The problem is we haven't seen much out of him in the past couple of years. So it's kind of up in the air for me right now. He's just like the rest of these guys. He's unproven because he hasn't done much recently. So if he works out, fantastic. That's great for them. They're going to have a veteran receiver for one of those 2 untested quarterbacks to throw to. So that's good news.
All right, let's move on. NFL's Jeremy Bergman reports that the Cowboys have a, quote, significant role for rookie wide receiver Ryan Switzer, and that it's not necessarily as a replacement for Cole Beasley in the offense. So, I mean, come on. They got to add more of a passing offense. Dak Prescott's going to his 2nd year. That team lost a lot on defense. So, like we talked about in the last couple episodes, ranking Cowboys players, I believe they're going to be more shootouts. So, of course, they're going to have to open up more wide receiver play. What are your guys' thoughts?
You would think.
You would assume.
I mean, this guy, this guy's a tiny guy, and for a wide receiver, but he's shifty and he's fast and he's got good hands. And everybody has been doing that whole, he looks like Cole Beasley out there. But they're saying that he's a much more kind of straight line wide receiver, somebody that can run those outside routes.
He's faster
and
than
do other things, and he's faster, right? So we could definitely see him kind of take up like a John Brown type of a role in this offense and be that that sharp route runner and somebody that Dak Prescott can throw the ball to a spot and know that Ryan's going to be there.
Yeah.
I could just see them running some, 4 wide receiver sets. I mean, they haven't really had outside of their 3. They really didn't even have that fourth guy that can be able to do damage from them. They normally just do their 3 wide receiver sets and then just use Jason Witten. So you bring this guy in there. Now you can be able to explore and play around with the 4 wide receiver sets a little bit.
I don't think Jason Witten's going to be used very much outside of the red zones at this point. He's getting a lot slower and a a lot older.
You would think. I mean,
you would think, but
this guy's been a pain in my butt for the last freaking 8 years. I mean,
just because of CJ,
he's been with the team a lot longer than that.
So you would think that he would slow down, but this guy, for some reason, he just always gets to be able to run a 30-yard slow 30-yard play to get a touchdown.
No one can catch the old man.
Rumbles into the end zone.
Yep. Let's move on. Baltimore tight end Dennis Pitta said that, quote, nobody is making more plays than Brashad Perriman during OTAs.
That's nice to hear.
It's nice to hear, especially from a guy who has been by all accounts, a big letdown. Former first-round wide receiver taken 3 years ago. Injured his entire rookie year, so last year was really his first season. So everyone's saying, well, he's going to that third year. Well, it's really his second year. So I don't really know where I stand with it. I know that he was drafted to be the replacement for Torrey Smith, a bigger, faster guy, more explosive, but we just haven't seen it yet. I would love to see him take that next step, and that he's going to get all the volume in the world, because so far Baltimore has not signed, a replacement for as far as, for the possession role like Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden, Derek Mason, those players before him. And Brashad's not that guy, but Mike Wallace already being that kind of outside burner. Brashad Perriman is, that guy as well, but he's believed to be able to run more of a route tree. We just have to see it. We have to see him continue to develop. So we'll see. Does this move him up your draft boards at all, guys? Hearing positive news like this, the potential of an increased role.
Nope. This is it. I hear he's also in the best shape of his life.
We hear that about everybody though this time of year. All right, let's move on. Last bit of news and some other news. Cowboys cornerback Nolan Carroll was arrested on misdemeanor DWI. So.
Nolan, what happened, buddy? You leave Philly and go to the Cowboys. Now look at you. Now
look at him. He's falling apart.
He is on the Cowboys.
Served you right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if he misses some time, NFL player conduct policies and whatnot, even more likely there's going to be shootouts against the Cowboys. So let's see how we're doing on time. All right. About 18 minutes in, so we're going to move into our topic of the day, which is our early consensus wide receiver rankings, part 2. Now, as always, we are here, and this is where it's going to be a lot more interesting. It was a lot of nitpicking up until we got to that last guy on Friday's show, talking about our top 12. We're not going to recap them. If you guys want to hear the top 12, just go back, listen to last week's show, and, that's not us being snooty. That's, there was a lot of debate and input, and we don't want to just run down the list without you guys having the information. That's why we're doing this. We want you guys to have all the information from 3 different people who have 3 very different strategies and 3 different very ways of looking at things, so you can get as much information as possible to go and make an informed decision for what you want, what you like, for your league, for your rules, whatever the case may be, because, this is not a list to necessarily stand by. These are our consensus rankings, and as you will hear, especially as we're moving further down the list, our stances on certain players become more and more broad. So we're just giving you all the information. We're trying to equip you guys to go out there and make the best decision that you can when you're when you're on the clock. So we're going to start with our number 13 wide receiver, which actually, because of changes that have been made, has moved up to our number 12 wide receiver, because we did it, world. We moved down one in particular player that we fought about for, I thought I said 10 minutes on the show. I went back and listened. It was actually about 17 minutes talking about Brandon Cooks. Yeah, Brandon Cooks Cooks dropped down to number 13 for us, but for the sake of keeping the list consistent, Allen Robinson is the next guy that we're going to talk about. So, Allen Robinson, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is going as the number 15 wide receiver right now, as the 10th pick in the third round. Now, I'm the highest at 11, CJ in the middle at 12. Jason, you are the lowest at 15. So, Jason, why don't you start off? Why are you not quite where, I mean, you're only a couple spots behind, but why aren't you where CJ and I are on Allen Robinson?
Risk mitigation. I like Blake Bortles, but we haven't seen anything yet, and he had such a bad year last year. I was a little concerned about that. I like Allen Robinson a lot. I'm actually shocked that I'm the lowest on him. But again, it's my faith in Blake Bortles that was shaken a little bit last year, watching him play and struggle. Now, I do believe that he's going to have a better year. I do believe that his throwing motion is going to be better. That arm injury, those two arm injuries, are going to be healed, and everything should be fine. So I will probably be moving Allen Robinson up a bit, but that's the only reason I have him down at 15.
I mean, when you look at Allen Robinson's career, man, I mean, that 2 years ago when Blake Bortles was riding high, that guy was flying up boards. I mean, he was underrated. They were waiver wire pickup, and then somebody picked him up, and then he just skyrocketed for you. I mean, if you got him, that was a good pickup. And then you take that high, and you go into this past season, and it was just terrible. It was a barn burner. I mean, it was disgusting seeing Blake Bortles just go out there and just have a raggedy season. So I'm total agreement on Jason, man. I mean, it's all hangs on what Blake Bortles does this year, because the talent is there, but the man can't throw the ball to himself. You know what I mean? So it's got to be Blake Bortles getting his stuff together, man, having a good year, getting it right. So then Allen Robinson could be, you know, a very high pick for you that you can be able to trust and be able to put in week after week and know that he's going to get you points.
Now, Jason, when you said you're shocked that you were the lowest on him, was that kind of a backhanded comment towards CJ, thinking he was going to be lower, or what were your thoughts there? Did you think you were going to be the highest on him?
No, not at all.
No?
Not at all. I mean, we've talked about Allen Robinson, and I didn't think CJ disliked him that much, because, I mean, whenever we talk about Jacksonville, he's more down on Blake Bortles than on Allen Robinson. I mean, Allen Robinson, correct me if I'm wrong, CJ, but the way we all feel about Allen Robinson is undeniably talented.
Yeah, I got him. He would be number one for me, but if the quarterback position was better. Because the talent is there.
I mean, you can't really argue that. Look, Allen Robinson, he's been a guy who we've seen kind of an up and down career so far. Obviously, as you guys mentioned, 2015, that was a great year for him. His sophomore year, 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. And then last year with Blake Bortles, you know, all the reports that he was injured and playing through it. And you can see a drop as the season goes on, as the injuries were rumored to have happened. So everything adds up. The eyeball test shows the error in the throwing motion, seeing all these balls that were just short or high or way off target all the time. So I have to believe that, I mean, a lot of the points that he scored in 2015 were kind of garbage time type stuff and big broken plays. Not to say he can't get back there. And who knows, maybe with the new regime that is in Jacksonville, maybe he can get back there more consistently. But I especially expect for 2017, as things kind of transition, and just for risk mitigation, like Jason said, as we're seeing it all kind of happen, I think that we can safely expect him to be somewhere in the middle. From 1,400 yards to 883 yards, that is a massive drop. I could easily see him being more of a 1,100-yard guy. He went from 14 touchdowns to 6 touchdowns. I could easily see him being in the 8 to 10 range. And you know, these are not necessarily his ceiling, but I think that's what I can comfortably predict. I think he is that guy. So with that statting him out, that's where I have him right now. So, I mean, I still really like Allen Robinson. The competition, you know, Allen Hurns, Marquise Lee, there's plenty of guys there that are pretty decent. But, I mean, the addition of a Leonard Fournette, you know, that's going to pull the linebackers up. They're going to have to respect their run. So that is going to really help Allen Robinson in the intermediate to long game. I'm very high on him. I know he was a letdown for a lot of people. He burned a lot of people last year, and therefore a lot of people I know aren't touching him this year. I get it, but I think that you have to look at all the facts surrounding the situation and know that a lot of that has changed. Doug Marrone is in now. Obviously, we know Tom Coughlin is there. This is going to be a better situation. Blake Bortles is healthy. They brought in offensive linemen. They're up the run game. I'm high on Allen Robinson. So we're all pretty much in agreement.
Question, Griffin.
Go for it.
So listen. So okay. So we're having a positive spin on this. Hopefully everything gets right.
Yes.
But what if everything happens just like it did last year? Blake Bortles has another bad year. Allen Robinson is tanking for you. He's barely putting up wide receiver 3 numbers for you. That's decent that you can be able to start him.
Well,
When do you move on from him and try to trade him?
Well, I mean, I had him last year, and I was just playing the matchups with him at that point because I saw what was going on, and, you have to, come back, listen to the show. We'll be telling you guys all this. A shameless plug there. But, I mean, it's one of those things where if you see a trend and it's downward and you can piece it together, offensive line is banged up, the run game is not working, Blake Bortles is hurt, he's playing through injury, he's just not performing well, I mean, then he becomes a streaming option. You're going to have to maybe offload him to someone who's not paying attention. If you're, obviously this is in a redraft year-to-year league, or you stream the position like I did. I played him in good matchups last year. I had some relatively good success with that. So and we all, like we said, we all believe he is immensely talented. So the question is the quarterback position. If he has another down year, I fully expect them to move on from Blake Bortles and draft another quarterback high in the next draft, which is supposed to be pretty loaded with quarterback talent in this upcoming year. So I am high on Allen Robinson no matter what happens this year. I think the talent's there. I think the ability's there. I think with all the changes they've made, he should get closer back to that 2015 form. So I do like Allen Robinson a lot. Let's move on, though. We're spending too much time on him. Number 14, Michael Crabtree, Oakland Raiders. Now, we have him at number 14. He is currently going as the number 22 wide receiver.
Whoa.
Yeah. A lot of disrespect for Michael Crabtree, who finished as a wide receiver 1 each of the last 2 years. I didn't point out, this is all standard scoring, by the way, because that's just what the masses do. So that's how we're appealing to everybody for the sake of this show. So he's currently going as the 10th pick in the 4th round, which I love, by the way, because that means I have a higher chance of getting him. So I have him at 14. Jason at 13. CJ, you have Michael Crabtree at 21. Why are you more in line with apparently the masses and so low on Michael Crabtree?
Well, I believe what the masses are thinking is it's just a high upside on wide receivers this year. I mean, there's a lot of people coming off an injury. You got a lot of rookies that shined and showed promise and stuff like that, man. So I can see that being it. I mean, regardless, just like you were saying, I mean, I think it's still good because you can still be able to pick him up later. I know we were talking about him and Amari Cooper are kind of, synonymous together. They get picked up not that far apart. So, I mean, he's a great talent. I love me Michael Crabtree. I mean, I've had him on my team for the last 3 years. So, I'm not taking no shots at him. It's just, there's a lot of wide receiver talent that rose up, and that's why he's there, 21.
Jason, you're the highest. What are your thoughts here?
Well, Crabtree is, to me, kind of like he's a safety blanket. I mean, he's always consistent. He's always there. He just gets the numbers. He's very, very good to have on your team because he's going to get utilized. The only thing I could say that may drop him would be if Amari Cooper does take that big step forward and become that guy that we all expect him to be, and he may suck up more targets this year than he has in past years, taking a little bit away from Michael Crabtree. But again, that may help Michael Crabtree's production because he may get less targets but more yardage because they're so concerned about Cooper. Either way, I'm high on Crabtree because of that he's kind of their Larry Fitzgerald in my mind. I mean, he's always there. He's always reliable. He's going to make things happen.
It's crazy to me because, look, it's not like he's old. He is 29. He'll turn 30 during the season, so he's still relatively in that prime. He has been very good and consistent. I mean, 85 catches 2 years ago, 89 this past year, around 1,000 yards, 8 to 9 touchdowns each year. So very good. He is used very consistently. He was the 14th most consistent wide receiver last year on the consistency rankings, so that's huge. He's not often injured. He hasn't missed a game in, since 2013. So, I mean... Whoa. I just really like Michael Crabtree a lot, and he has been that guy. Yes, Jared Cook is there. Yes, they have brought in, Marshawn Lynch, so that's going to take away touchdowns. Jared Cook's probably going to get a couple. Amari Cooper is just not used in the red zone, though. That's Michael Crabtree's area. So I could get the fear. I can get the understanding of why he's probably dropped down a couple spots. I mean, again, he finished as a wide receiver 1 this year, and neither one of us have him ranked as a wide receiver 1 in our rankings. So, I mean, maybe we haven't corrected enough for that. But, I mean, I still like him. I still think he's the top option. He's the possession guy. And Amari Cooper's kind of that boom buzz burner guy. At least that's what he's been. And everyone's hoping that he takes that next step. That's why everyone's so high on him, this magical third year that we always talk about and always hear about. Yeah. But, I mean, bottom line, Michael Crabtree has been the safety blanket. So, take away some touchdowns, say he gets the 6 or 7 instead of 8 to 9. Maybe he still gets around 1,000 yards. That's still solid wide receiver 2 production. So that's more high to mid range than low end. So I don't know. I still like Michael Crabtree. I get the thought process behind dropping him down, but I think that the upside is there. And Cordero Patterson, he's not going to be eating into Michael Crabtree's production because he's just another burner, just like Amari Cooper. That doesn't affect Michael Crabtree. So I don't know. It's a lot to look at and very interesting, and I really expect that offense to continue to grow as Derek Carr comes back from injury and takes the next step in his progression. He's getting better and better, easily one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. So we'll see. A lot to watch for sure. Number 15, DeAndre Hopkins. Now, this is a guy who I was kind of surprised by. He's going as the number 12 wide receiver right now. We have him as number 15 as a show. He's going as the 11th pick in the second round, so that's pretty high to me. CJ, I thought for sure you were going to be the highest on him, but we both have him at 15, and Jason, you're down at 18. So guys, talk to me about DeAndre Hopkins and why, really, as a whole, I feel like we're all higher on him than people were expecting. Though, he's going 12, so he's actually going higher than any of us have him.
Well, I'm the lowest on him, so I'll start. Look, DeAndre Hopkins, in my mind, has a talent level to be a wide receiver 1. He should be a wide receiver 1. But I don't trust the quarterback situation in Houston at even a little tiny bit. Tom Savage is not a starting quarterback in this league, and Deshaun Watson is a rookie. So in both situations, I don't trust either of them throwing the ball down the field to DeAndre Hopkins. And we saw that what happens to Hopkins when he doesn't have good quarterback play last year. He played like garbage, So that's why he is not in that wide receiver 1 conversation for me. As far as keeping him up this high in wide receiver 2 land, it's that talent. He's got the talent. And if he gets the production, when Tom Savage came in, his production actually went up because the quarterback talent went up a smidge. So his talent level went up. Now, if Deshaun Watson comes in as the starter and blows everybody away, pulls a Dak Prescott, and is able to do amazing things, then you're going to see Hopkins' production skyrocket, and he's going to be very, very good. But I don't see that happening. That's why I have him around 18.
I think that's what people's mindset is going into why they have him a little higher, is because they think Deshaun Watson is way better than Brock Osweiler, that mess that he had there. And then when Tom Savage did come in, he gave him some production, and production went up. So, basically, it's like, the bar is Brock Osweiler. Anything over that is going to be phenomenal, and that's going to bring up his numbers and his production. But I mean, I just think, just like Jason said, the talent is there. It's just all of the eyes on the quarterback. I have a little more faith in Deshaun Watson. I think that he's going to be able to do something. I'm not a big fan of him starting early, just because it doesn't always work out like a Jameis, a Marcus Mariota, and a Dak Prescott. Not every starting quarterback comes into the league and has miracle seasons like that. Sometimes you come in there and you hit your head, and then you get shook sometimes. So I'm a little concerned that might happen, but I think that's why I have him higher on my board. I know he's a gamer. I mean, the guy shows up when the lights are on. So, I mean, I have him a little higher just because of that. And I think that I know that Dre is going to be able to benefit from that kid's talent.
Well, I mean, bottom line, I agree with everything you guys have said. And, the question is, who's the real DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, 2015, his magical season. Played all 16. Well, technically, he hasn't missed a game yet. He's played all 16 games each of the 4 years he's been in the league. 2015, 111 receptions, 1,521 yards, 11 touchdowns. Now, we broke down that season. Last offseason, talked about the trends, and as the defense got better, he trended downwards. So that was kind of the argument. We weren't really... I don't think we downgraded him enough for Brock Osweiler. I know I wasn't high on him because I did not like the tape of Brock Osweiler from Denver to then becoming the Houston Texans starting quarterback. And, that turned out to be a train wreck. Still had an okay season, 954 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's the big downer. So you have to assume that he's going to get somewhere in the middle. Tom Savage, Deshaun Watson, one of these guys is going to come in. They're going to start. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to get fed the ball a lot more. I think he's going to be more productive, and he's going to thrive. I don't know if he gets back to wide receiver 1, which is why I don't have him as wide receiver 1, because we don't know what Watson's going to be in this league, and we don't really think that Savage is that elite quarterback talent. So it's going to be something to watch, and I think that's why I'm a little bit more hesitant on it. Obviously, he's the undeniable number 1 receiver. Will Fuller's a really good speedy guy to help stretch the field and to work opposite of him, but we all know DeAndre Hopkins is the true number 1 on that team, so I expect him to get the volume. It's going to come down to quarterback play for the second year in a row. So we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. That's my hesitation. Let's move on. Davante Adams, Green Bay wide receiver. We have him at number 16. He is currently going as the number 16 wide receiver, as the 10th pick in the 3rd round. I have him at 13, CJ at 18, Jason at 19, and man, I have such a love-hate relationship with Davante Adams. I'm going to let one of you guys go because I don't even want to talk about it. He cost me so much for the both the last 2 years. He has cost me. And I bought in both years, and here I am, the highest on him yet again. So somebody else talk about Davante Adams.
Davante Adams to me is a wide receiver that he's confusing. I mean, the talent is there. You got Aaron Rodgers throwing you the ball. That's always going to be a good thing. But to me, it's like I feel like there's more there than what he's putting out on the field. So when I see it, and then I see that he'll have a bomb game like he did. What was it against Chicago, where he just blasted them when he had like 2 or 3 touchdowns, couple hundred yards. That was great. Then it was like the next week he struggled just to get even 50 yards. So it was like the inconsistency is ridiculous, and it's like. I can see that the writing is on the wall when it comes to Randall Cobb. So he looks like he's supposed to be his predecessor, but his game doesn't show that. His game shows that he's just a spotty player. He's probably going to be a waiver wire guy, but the talent says something else. The talent says that he should be a number 2, arguably number 1. If he balls out like he's supposed to, but he plays like he's a waiver wire guy.
Yeah, he is super touchdown dependent too. That's the other thing. It's like what CJ alluded to. If you look at his numbers last year, 11 points first week, 0.6 points the second week, 8.3 points the third week, 14.5 points against the Giants, 3.4 points. So up and down and up and down and up and down. Not consistent at all. And it kind of makes sense because, like we said many times, there's certain quarterbacks you don't want to go get their receivers because they spread the ball around so much, and the exception would be Jordy Nelson in this particular offense. But everybody else, you got to be scared of picking them up because you don't know what's going to happen week to week. So that's my problem with Davante Adams, just complete inconsistency, and I don't like players that are dependent on touchdowns because it is so volatile that if they don't get a touchdown that week, their numbers are garbage.
Oh, Davante Adams. All right, let me say some stuff here. For starters, Davante Adams, I've rode the train with him since 2014 when he was a rookie all the way through 2016. 2014, he didn't really do much, and he flashed in the playoffs. And then everybody kind of bought in high on him going into drafts in 2015. Massive disappointment. 50 receptions for 483 yards and 1 touchdown. So obviously everyone very low on him. Then he kind of breaks out again with Randall Cobb getting hurt in 2016, last year. And actually in the consistency rankings, he finished 7th. So that kind of shows you how volatile the position was as a whole. I think there's a little bit of a stat overcorrection there, but whatever. That's where he placed. And, 75 receptions for 997 yards. So not super high in either one of those areas. Not a PPR guy, but what made him finish as high as he did, 12 touchdowns. Now, I broke down all these stats when we were talking about Jordy Nelson last week, and all of that still applies to Davante Adams. There have been many, many years where Aaron Rodgers, the top fantasy quarterback, the most precision-based quarterback, the top red zone passing quarterback in the league, has supported a number one wide receiver and a secondary number one or a high-end number two wide receiver. That volume is not changing. They're bringing in the run game, so that means that they're going to have to respect the run more. Even when they had Eddie Lacy in his prime, they still had the same prototype. We passed the ball. We passed to set up the run, then we passed some more. And Eddie Lacy was able to thrive because they don't know what to expect. It's more balanced, but they still like to pass. So I don't see that changing with all of the young talent and uncertain talent that they have in there right now. Davante Adams, he kind of solidified that number two role, and I think Randall Cobb, it's going to be kind of a split. Martellus Bennett, yes, he's going to get a part of these touchdowns. Randall Cobb, if he can stay healthy, will get a part of these touchdowns. So these are reasons to downgrade him, but I have to assume that, this is his third real year in the offense, fourth year as a whole. He made a big step last year that he continues to develop. I like him, and I hate myself for liking him because he cost me a couple championships last year. And obviously, I invested pretty high into him in 2015 and let me down pretty bad. So Davante Adams, such a love-hate relationship. I hope it all comes together, and I just know the volume and the opportunity and the offense that he's in can easily support him. He just has to put it together because, as you guys pointed out, he was more of a hyper-efficient guy last year. He was targeted like 5 or 6 times. He made 5 of those catches. So he's just very good, but not getting a ton of volume. I don't know if that changes. But, we've seen this offense support high-end. Like, look at James Jones. Not a lot of targets, not a lot of yards, but a ton of touchdowns, making him a fantasy weapon. So it becomes a little bit more boom-bust in that camp. But Davante Adams, in that offense, there's a very real chance that he's able to repeat as we have him here, as a wide receiver 2, or he has wide receiver 1 upside. So anything you guys want to add here before we move on?
That's about it.
Jason?
I think you covered it.
All right, so let's move on. Oh, man, number 17, Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs. Boom. Now, I have him at 18, and I'm shocked I'm not the lowest on him. For reasons that I cannot fathom, CJ is the lowest at 25, who was very high on him. And then, of course, Jason, the highest at 14. He is currently going as the wide receiver 20. We have him at 17, so we're a little bit high on him as a show. And he is going as the 4th pick in the 4th round. So why don't you guys, because you're the highest and the lowest, talk to me about Tyreek Hill?
Well, I'll start since I'm the highest on him. So last year, he was what I like to call the multi-tool on that team. He did a little bit of everything. He'd run out of the backfield when he needed to. He'd catch the ball when he needed to. If you look at the last 3 games, he caught for 66 yards and a touchdown in Oakland. Then they played Tennessee, and then he ran the ball for 68 yards and a touchdown. And then against Denver, ran the ball for 95 yards and a touchdown. Didn't catch a single ball in those 2 games, but he still scored 11 points and 15.5 points. This guy does everything. He is super fast. He is very talented, and they've already said that they want to get him more involved in the offense, which, why wouldn't you with this kind of talent? He can score from anywhere on the field. He's a phenomenal talent. And if you look at how he ended the season, 4 of his best games in the entire season were the last 5 weeks, So he trended upward toward the end of the season, and I think that's going to continue. I think he gained his confidence, and they're going to get the rock to him a lot more, and I expect to see him kind of be a featured piece.
Well, breaking news, he's moving up in my rankings. Just want to let you guys know. Just want to let you guys know that. Basically everything that Jason says. To me, he's basically Antonio Brown's little brother. He could be that guy in this offense, man, because he's dynamic. You get a guy that can maybe get you points in the passing game, in the running game, in the special team game. That's a triple threat. A guy that you want to get on your team, and a guy that listen, don't tell anybody, but a guy that I'm going to be targeting in drafts. Like I want me.
No, are
Tyreek Hill. I mean, don't tell anybody though. Don't tell nobody though.
So really, what you're telling me is that you have him so low in your rankings to try and drive his value down so you can get him at a lower price.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, because last year I was honest and true, and the fans, they messed me over. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna start dropping people. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Because that's a great way to win the fans over.
That's just a great way.
Okay.
Just to throw them off the scent.
All right. So for starters, I'm going to weigh in here. I'm in the middle, and I'm debating on moving him down, and that's only for a few reasons. I agree he's very talented, and he was a talented prospect coming out of college. Off the field issues kind of dropped him down in the draft, but landed in a good spot. And with the possible changes in the offense there over the next couple of years, he could really thrive. Couple things to remember. One, in standard scoring leagues and on a number of websites, you don't get points for return yards or anything on special teams. So a good chunk of his points, 976 return yards and 3 returning touchdowns, that's off the board. Also, then we're talking about a guy who had 24 rushing attempts for 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then another 61 receptions for 593 yards and 6 touchdowns. The touchdown pace was kind of unsustainable. The yardage was kind of fluctuated, and so I just, if your league incorporates all of this, great. That's where he thrives. That's where you should be targeting him higher. But most standard leagues, which is what we're talking about right now, don't. So that's why I have him a little bit lower. I think the pace was not exactly something that's going to sustain. Now I have him where I have him because of all the news coming out. Andy Reid, everybody saying that they plan on doubling his touches, doubling his snaps. And if that happens, great. Love it. But it remains to be seen. That's why I kind of have him as a middle-of-the-pack RB2, because I don't really know which way it's going to go. So that's kind of my way to safely slot him for the time being. Anything you guys want to add before we move on?
Let's keep rolling.
Let's keep rolling. Number 18, Terrell Pryor, now of the Washington Redskins. We have him at 18. He is ranked as number 19, going also as the 4th pick in the 4th round. I'm at 19, so I have him perfectly rated. 22 for CJ, 17 for Jason. So really fast, guys. Talk to me about Terrell Pryor, because we already talked about him a little bit in the top headlines.
Yeah, man, we already mentioned about him earlier, man. Once again, great year. I mean, he showcased his talents in Cleveland. I think he has a good upside with Kirk Cousins. I mean, if Kirk Cousins has a relationship with him like he had with Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson, I think all the stars are lined up for Terrell Pryor to have a good rookie season with the Redskins.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he's obviously going to have the best quarterback he's ever had thrown in the ball this year. I mean, he was able to do a lot of really good things with a horrible team last year in the Cleveland Browns. So I think that translates over very, very well to Washington, where they've got a quarterback who can throw for 5,000 yards and who missed it, was just shy of it. I think that the marriage between him and that team is going to work out really, really well for both parties, and I expect to see him do extremely well this year.
A second year as a wide receiver, because remember, he was a quarterback for the first 3 years of his career, 4 years actually, and then he made the switch last year to wide receiver and had a great year. To be fair, he was the only real target in Cleveland. Corey Coleman, he broke his hand. Josh Gordon never saw the field. Gary Barnidge was not really a part of the way that offense ran, and that team as a whole was kind of a dumpster fire. Sorry, Cleveland fans, but it's true. So 77 receptions for 1,007 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was his production last year. I could see all of those stats going up because of what you guys have said. He's got Kirk Cousins now, which is a much better quarterback. I like the offense he's in better as a passing offense. He's not going to be the only weapon in town anymore. Josh Doxson, who was a very highly rated rookie last year, obviously he got hurt, missed the majority of the season. He could be a very good, also, wide receiver on the outside, so they're not going to be able to throw all the coverage at Pryor. Jamison Crowder, who was, kind of a fantasy secret weapon for parts of last year, working the slot. So there's weapons. They're not going to be able to cover him. Kirk Cousins throwing the ball, better passing offense. All of this tells me Terrell Pryor could actually be doing a lot better, and we're hearing good things, as we talked about in the top headlines, about how he's already building a decent repertoire with Kirk. So I like him. I don't know how much I like him, just because I could see him moving up. I could see him moving down. Probably up, though, by everything we're hearing. So it's going to be something very interesting to monitor through camp. And remember, he's only there on a 1-year deal. So he's got to learn a new offense. And he has to make an impression because he's basically on a prove-it contract. So I like him. I like the upside. And, whether you like or hate Terrell Pryor, the opportunity is there. So, let's move on. Number 19, we have Demaryius Thomas, Denver Broncos. So this is a guy that I'm sure some people were expecting to hear earlier than this. Others, maybe not, as our rankings actually reflect. I have him at 16, CJ at 19, Jason at 27. Wow. He is going as the number 18 wide receiver in drafts right now, as the first pick in the 4th round. So, Jason, tell me why you're so low on Demaryius Thomas.
Simeon. That's my main reason. I don't trust the quarterback situation in Denver. I don't like it. They haven't really they didn't do anything. You know what I mean? And it may be that they may move on to Paxton Lynch, and maybe that changes things. Who knows? But I'm not a Simeon fan by any stretch. I like Demaryius Thomas, and with a good quarterback, I think he'll be very good. But at the moment, with all the question marks, it's really just risk mitigation for me.
I'm real close to doing the same thing as Jason doing, getting him out of these teens and getting into the 20 range. Just like Jason said, just with the quarterback situation there, they really don't know what they want to do yet, And then I really feel like they're trying to, bolster up that running game and get that going back, because that was their bread and butter. That's what they were good at. So, Demaryius Thomas, I mean, he really hasn't been relevant to me ever since Peyton Manning left. It's been that bad for him. And with him gone, and then you had Osweiler there, then he had Simeon, and then Paxton Lynch. So he's just been falling off, and he's just one of those victims of just being in a bad situation with quarterbacks.
Okay, and I see your points, but I'm actually debating on moving him up my rankings, and here's why.
Yikes.
Let me make my case. He has been 1,000-yard receiver each of the last 5 years. That includes the last 2 years where you had whatever was going on last year. I mean, bad offensive line, run game getting banged up. Trevor Siemian as your starting quarterback. Paxton Lynch coming in when Trevor Siemian was hurt, which was a couple times. So, it is what it is. The year before that, 2015, obviously not so great year with Peyton Manning. Still, 1,300 yards and 6 touchdowns. So the guy, he has been a consistent number 1 wide receiver on his team. He has been a 1,000-yard receiver consistently. Obviously finished as a top-tier elite fantasy weapon when Adam Gase and Peyton Manning were there. And I'm not saying that he's getting back to his numbers like 2014, 1,600 yards and 11 touchdowns. Or the year before that, 2013, 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. I'm not saying he gets there, but I think he has shown a track record of being a very productive fantasy receiver. And, Paxton Lynch, another year of development. Maybe he takes that next step. We'll have to see how that plays out in camp. They have upgraded that offensive line, as we talked about previously, bringing in Ronald Leary, an offensive guard from Dallas. They brought in Watson, an offensive tackle from Oakland. They drafted Garrett Bowles, an offensive tackle out of Utah, who is very highly rated. They drafted him in the 1st round. So they have showed a commitment to upgrading the offensive line. Quarterbacks have another year of development. They have brought in more running back weapons, and hopefully they can keep the running game going to help open up the pass, which is what was the whole cornerstone of Gary Kubiak's offensive styling, and it seems like that's going to be the trend even going forward with the new regime. So I still think Demaryius Thomas has a very good chance of being a low-end wide receiver 1. I think that's his upside. I think his ceiling is very easily wide receiver 1. But it's all going to come down to, like you guys are saying, which is your big knock against him, the quarterback play. That's the unknown. But they've made enough adjustments in the offseason, including bringing in Carlos Henderson, which is a guy that I know I like, and a guy who can really help set the offense up. Jake Butt, they also brought in an underrated pass-catching tight end. So I really like the moves that they've made, and I think that Demaryius Thomas easily has another 1,000-yard year, and if he can get back up to 6 or so touchdowns, you're looking at a guy who's going to finish as a pretty high-end wide receiver too, right there by himself. So I don't know, that's the difference between us. Does that can you guys even fathom that happening, or are you just really down on it all?
I'm just leaving
you on that. He played well. Yeah, he played well last year, like I said, and the problem was his ceiling is great, but his ceiling is only as high as the quarterback can get him the ball. If with an improved offensive line, as you mentioned, and if they switch to Paxton Lynch, and he proves to be ready, which he may be ready now. We don't know. then yeah, I would definitely consider moving him up my rankings if they make that announcement.
All right, well, I guess time will tell. Let's move on. Number 20, a guy who should not be this low, and it's my fault, and I don't really know why it worked out this way. I'm going to have to look at my rankings. A guy who I love, Larry Fitzgerald, Arizona Cardinals wide receiver.
Don't patronize him now. Don't patronize him now. Look like you love him.
I have to go back and figure out what went wrong in my rankings.
No.
I know I'm down
Larry,
on him.
Larry, if you're listening to this, I apologize for Griffin.
I apologize for myself.
I'll tell you what went right. You were like, wait a minute. Larry Fitzgerald, I like him. But who was throwing him the ball?
Yeah, one of the...
Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he's going down in the... Where you have him? Oh, 28. We're putting him down.
I can't wait to see how the bet finishes off between Carson Wentz and Carson Palmer this year. I'm so excited to watch football this season.
I already know how that's going to go.
It's going to be so good. Anyway, Larry Fitzgerald. Now, like I said, I am down on him, but not this down. We have him as our consensus number 20 wide receiver. He's currently going as the wide receiver 29, so we're high on him as a show. He's going as the 6th pick in the 6th round. Now, I have him at 28, so I'm actually closest to his ADP. CJ at 20, Jason at 12. So, guys,
boom.
Talk to me about Larry Fitzgerald, and then I'm going to go ahead and apologize even more so, probably. So, go ahead. Take this away. Whoever wants to start off.
Well, obviously, I should be the guy to start this one off. That's
team.
My guy right there.
Yep.
So Larry Fitzgerald, this isn't just a homer heart pick, okay? Larry Fitzgerald is the number 1 receiver in this offense, and I don't care what CJ says, you've got a gunslinger in Carson Palmer throwing the ball down the field. The receivers on the outside, J.J. Nelson and John Brown, are both going to have pretty good years. John Brown is healthy this year. He's going to look like the John Brown from 2015. So he may take that step that he was supposed to take in his 3rd year this year. So I'm expecting actually John Brown to crawl up these rankings very, very quickly. But that's going to take the pressure off of Larry Fitzgerald, which was pretty much the only thing working in the passing game last year other than David Johnson. You look at Michael Floyd, who was dropping the ball all over the field. You look at John Brown, who was injured the entire year last year, dealing with sickle cell and all the other things. Larry was the guy, and that showed in his receptions. 107 receptions. He led the league in receptions last year. Only 6 touchdowns, and that was the problem. And that was because of David Johnson, who was sucking up all those touchdowns, 20 touchdowns on the year for David. So Larry Fitzgerald has got a very, very good quarterback who's going to be very, very good this year. The offensive line is healthy. The other weapons on the team are healthy. That's going to open up the center of the field and get Larry more touches and more opportunity to work with the ball in space, which he really didn't have last year. So I expect him, as I've mentioned multiple times on the show now, I expect him to have a banner year this coming year.
Banner year. Well, listen, man, I got nothing but respect for Larry Fitzgerald. He's the GOAT when it comes to wide receiver. I love how he can go from outside, go into the inside, and be even more productive. I mean, I look at him as a guy that you'll be able to pick up, mid rounds. And he's gonna hold you down. He's gonna hold you down. He's gonna get you those points. And I think when it comes to those mid-round guys, that's what you're looking for. So I have no issues with Larry Fitzgerald as a player, and that's why I got him there.
I mean, yeah, Larry Fitzgerald, you can't say enough good things. I mean, he's a first-round Hall of Famer. He's amazing. He's an elite talent. He has finished very consistently, even with the very up year the 2015 Arizona Cardinals offense had and the down year they had last year. 109 receptions 2015, 107 last year. Drop off in touchdowns from 9 to 6, so that's where it really was, the inconsistency, which is not even that big of a drop. And, that's with a lot of injuries on the offense. He got about 200 less yards as well. Now, Larry Fitzgerald, if this was PPR, he would be much, much higher because of the the numbers we just talked about right there. In a standard league, I do drop him down a bit, and a lot of that has to do with stuff that I've talked about previously. And I don't want to play the age card here, especially with how high I am on Jordy Nelson, who's actually the same age. Actually, I think he's a year older. But Larry Fitzgerald showed a trend each of the last 2 years that he started off on fire and kind of faded off as the season went on, and that's my only concern. That being said, I still love Larry. I think he's going to get a ton of targets, a ton of receptions. I think he's going to get back to getting a higher touchdown number. This is his last year, by all accounts. He's probably going to retire after the season, so it seems like he's going to probably want to leave it all out there, I would assume. So, I mean, I don't really know why I'm so low on Larry in my initial rankings. I'm going to be adjusting them as soon as we're done recording the show. But, no, I do really like Larry. I like him as a wide receiver, too. I wouldn't take him as a wide receiver 1, especially in standard formats like Jason has him. But I could easily take him in the middle of the wide receiver 2 range. He's going in the 6th round. I could easily see him being a low-end 4th-round pick. I get it, the age and everything scares you. But that offense, like Jason said, is going to flow much better this year. A lot of injuries, especially to the wide receivers. They're going to finally have those speedy guys to stretch the field. David Johnson, everyone knows what they've got in him. And Larry's going to be that guy working the intermediate stuff. The short to intermediate. And he can still do outside. Don't let that fool you. He can still be an outside guy. That was his forte for the majority of his career. So, no, I still like Larry a lot. Red zone weapon, I'll fix it. Let's just leave it at that. Number 21, a guy who I'm probably not going to fix. Alshon Jeffrey, Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I have him drastically the lowest. I have him at 31. That might be a little bit too low, but I am very low on Alshon. CJ, of course, the Eagles fan, the highest at 13. Jason in the middle at 22. He's currently going as the number 14 wide receiver off the board as the 6th pick in the 3rd round, which to me is good news because that just means that he will definitely not be on any of my teams because I'm not putting a 3rd-round pick into Alshon Jeffrey. So, CJ, let's start with you since you're the Eagles fan here. Talk to me about Alshon.
Well, listen, man, I can understand why people, I can understand why you guys have him lower and other people might have him rising. So let me talk about the negatives first. So you go to Chicago, you see his last year, he played 12 games. He had some stupid slip ups, with that suspension that he had with the drugs. And then, he has 52 receptions, 821 yards, and then the killer, only 2 touchdowns. Now, I'm going to put that just on the regime. I mean, I feel like the writing was on the wall with Chicago last year that organization needs to rebuild. It was all written on Jay Cutler's face, and the team can only go as far as the quarterback goes. You know what I mean? So I can put that on that. Now, listen, the things that I've heard from and then what I've seen through OTAs and just listening to the coaching staff, man, they're in love with Alshon. They love his attitude, love his work ethic. He's just shining out there. And I know that's probably not saying much with this being one of the worst wide receiving corps in the league last year. So, I mean, of course it's a drastic change, you know what I mean? So I just believe that, you give him, a rising star and Carson Wentz, you put other weapons around him, man. I think Alshon Jeffrey is going to have a good season. He's going to bounce back and be that top guy like a couple years ago where he was making crazy plays and putting up good touchdowns. I can actually see him doing more and better than what he did in 2014, where he started all 16 games, 85 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and he had 10 touchdowns. I think that he can be able to do that and do more than that this year in Philly, and he's probably going to do it anyway because he's only on a 1-year deal and he's going to want to get paid next year. So that's just my thinking.
Jason, you want to go? Or do you want me to go?
I think you should go. You're the lowest on him.
I am by far the lowest. Okay, so let me start off by saying that Alshon Jeffrey, no matter how you look at it, very inconsistent player, very talented player. Can't take that away from him. If you watch him out there on the field, immensely talented. And you can say that's the quarterback. You can say it is what it is, but a lot of it's the drive, a lot of it's the off the field, a lot of it's the injuries. He was the number 55 wide receiver last year on the consistency rankings for the games that he played. So that says a lot. Now you can chop that up to, again, the quarterback, the offensive scheme, whatever the case may be. But he's going to an offense that threw for 16 touchdowns last year as a whole. So not too exciting. Also, he hasn't played a full season since 2014. He's been constantly banged up, obviously missed time due to suspensions, plays through injuries even when he ends there. He's been not the most durable player, and a lot of his injuries are lower body leg injuries, and those things tend to linger. Knees, legs, hamstring, calf, another hamstring injury. So he's just a huge injury risk. I don't like that. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Philadelphia now, and I don't know if Carson Wentz is necessarily taking that next step yet. I assume he develops, but now there's a lot of targets for that ball to be spread around to. I just don't know if there's enough volume in that offense for Alshon Jeffrey. I don't know if he's going to be able to be on the field enough. He's got to come in and learn a new offense. We've never seen him do that. And I always say beware of faces in new places, and that's exactly the situation here. It is a one-year deal. It's a prove-it deal, so that raises the ceiling to me. But so was last year for him, and he went out and put up one of the worst seasons of his career. 52 receptions for 821 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I get that he was the top wide receiver in the free agency this year. I'm just not a big believer in Alshon Jeffrey. I have to see it. Now, do I have him too low at 31? I would say absolutely. I've got to move him up. But I haven't finished statting him out yet to see exactly where he lands statistically, but I know that trends-wise, he's got to be somewhere a little bit higher than that, most likely. But who knows? If he misses time, I could easily see him falling that low or lower because he's missed plenty of time in his career. What are your thoughts, Jason?
Well, Jason, one more time before
Sorry, go ahead, man.
One thing before you talk. Listen, now when Griffin was talking about the 16 touchdowns, let that be show. Let me say that Lane Johnson really screwed this team over with him and the suspension that he had because this team was moving. They were moving the ball. Everything was great, and then that suspension hit. And that was 10 games, so that really hurt the team. In the passing game, it showed. I mean, Carson Wentz was getting just mauled back there. And he had 0 time, so I put that as a factor, and it made him hit that rookie wall a little early than expected. But that's just my little note I want to put in there.
That's fair. It's your team. I expect it. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Cool. All right, so it's apropos that I'm the middle guy in this situation because I kind of have I'm of two minds when it comes to Alshon Jeffrey. I remember 2014 and 2013 when he had amazing seasons. 1,400 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns in 13. And then in 14, 1,133 yards and 10 touchdowns. Okay, the guy made some amazing catches. He was one of those guys that just came on and you're like, oh my gosh, he's got so much talent. Then 2015 happened, he got injured. And he's not been right since. He hasn't played a full season since. So that is concerning. And that is not good. And as Griffin mentioned, even when he did play, he's very inconsistent. So that's why I have him down at 22. However, why I have him up at 22 from the other side of this is he had a wet rag throwing the ball to him in Chicago. And I'm sorry, Chicago Bears fans, but I know most Chicago Bears fans I know don't even like Cutler, so I'm probably not offending anybody. I can't stand Jay Cutler, and I thought that he was very inconsistent, not the guy that needed to be in Chicago. With a better quarterback, I think Alshon Jeffrey plays better. He's now with a team with a young quarterback who's up and coming, and here's one of the biggest differences between me and CJ. The lack of respect he shows for my quarterback, I have the utmost respect for his. Carson Wentz played very well this year for a rookie. I love watching him in the pocket. He's able to go through his progressions better than most rookies I've ever seen. And this team is up and coming partially because of that young quarterback. So I post a lot of his ability on this team on the ability of Carson Wentz to see if he can get the ball down the field a little bit better than he did this last year, which he probably will because he's going to progress. He's going to be able to get through his reads faster. And I think Alshon Jeffrey is going to show his talent and his ability as long as he's able to keep his head on straight and not do something stupid like he did last year. He should be okay. So hopefully that fixes the consistency as well, and he's better week to week. That's why I have him at 22 and he could really go either way. He could drop down to where Griffin has him, or he could be all the way up, maybe even higher than where CJ has him.
Brian Hoyer wasn't much better than Jay Cutler last year when he was playing either, or Matt Barkley.
Very true.
So yeah, it was a bad situation as a whole. The other thing I want to point out, then we have to move on because we're already over now and we have a couple more guys still to get to. Alshon Jeffrey suffers from the same thing that I kind of lump in with like Eric Decker, where they are very talented, but they just don't seem to thrive as the true number one guy. When they're the 1A or the number 2, they are insanely productive, but when they are pulling all the coverage, they just don't seem to get the job done. And in Philadelphia, he's going to be that number one guy, especially on the outside. So it's all reasons that I'm kind of down on him. Though I have
but
to make an adjustment.
he has a better supporting cast in Philly than he did in Chicago, though.
That's true. And that's why I didn't make that as one of my main points, but it's something I have to point out because there's been a history of it. Like Brandon Marshall missed a game. Obviously, when he was with Brandon Marshall, that's when he had his best production. And then the last 2 years, not so much. So, but we have to move on. Let's see. We have 3 more guys. Crap. Number 22, we have Keenan Allen, Los Angeles Chargers. Now, we have him at 22. He's going currently as the number 21 wide receiver, as the 5th pick in the 4th round. I'm at 23. CJ, shockingly the lowest at 24. And then Jason at 20. CJ, why are you so low on Keenan Allen? I thought this was your guy.
This is my guy, man. This is my baby right here. But this man, it just hurts that this dude has just been hurt all the time. You know, the talent is there. It's just the injuries, man. And, I mean, I love the talent, and I love that Phillip Rivers is throwing him the ball. But I just need Keenan Allen to get healthy, man. I need 16 games. If this man can give me if he can just give me 16 games, oh my goodness, man. The points are going to be just rolling in. But until I see it, man, Keenan Allen, my man, I'm sorry, bro. I gotta put you at 24, man. I hated to do it when I'm making this list. I did, but man, I need to see you healthy, man.
Jason, you're the highest.
Yeah. So, well, pulling the curtain back a little bit here, I made a mistake, and I apologize to the listeners. I was planning on switching Keenan Allen with another player who we're going to talk about here shortly, and I had him by far the lowest. I actually had him ranked at 31.
Oh man!
And I just didn't fix the rankings before I sent them forward. So my apologies, and I will explain why. The bottom line here is this: Keenan Allen has not shown me a thing yet. He has been hurt most of his career, and even when he wasn't hurt, he didn't really do a whole lot. You know, I mean, he hasn't done anything. You know, I mean, his average. The only thing that is really something that's really good to look at is his average, 10.5 yards per reception. You know, that's for 6 receptions though. 1 game, 8 games, 14 games, 15 games. As he's gotten older within the league, he's played less games every year. You know, so that really concerns me. And just like CJ said, the dude's hurt all the time. You know, this guy is basically the Robert Griffin III of the wide receiver ranks.
Whoa.
He has not shown me yet. He has not shown me yet that he can do anything in this league without getting hurt. So until he shows me that, I'm not touching him. He is plutonium to me. I'm keeping him as far away from my teams as possible.
I mean, bottom line, Keenan Allen has yet to play a full season in his career. Obviously, we know 2015, he played the first half of the season, was on a insane pace. He 8 games, 8 touchdowns. He was averaging 90 yards a game. I mean, he was tearing it up. A lot has changed since the halfway point of 2015, including coming in and playing not even a half of football last year before tearing his ACL. Yes, it was a lacerated kidney that he had back in 2015. That's kind of a freak accident. ACLs, it happens, but it's not exactly, you know, it's more of a fluke thing than anything. It's not, you do this is going to be what happens. Right. So, I get it, and I'm shocked that I'm the highest on him because I just didn't think that was going to be the case. Keenan Allen, immensely talented. I think he's going to come back, be the number 1 guy there. He's only 25 years old. And the problem is, of course, they have so many weapons in Los Angeles now with the Chargers. They have so many pass-catching, red zone weapons, and Keenan Allen's just not that guy. I mean, yes, 8 touchdowns that 1 year. That's great. We love to see that. But, oh, no, sorry, I was looking at the wrong stat. 4 touchdowns that year. Okay, so that makes more sense. I was looking at plays over 20 yards. That makes more sense. Sorry, 8 games, 4 touchdowns. But, that's the thing. He is 6'2". He is a taller guy, but in the red zone, they're going to be looking at Mike Williams. They're going to be looking at Tyrell Williams. They're going to be looking at their tight ends, obviously. Antonio Gates, that's all he does now. Hunter Henry, a great red zone weapon. And even if Keenan Allen's worked into that rotation, which he will be, he'll be part of the offense. He'll be in there. He's the number 1 guy. If he's healthy, it's still just yet another pass-catching option down there in the red zone. You don't know how consistently he's going to get the ball, plus they have a running game. So, I don't know. The fact that he has never played a full season is what has him down so low for me. Can he finish higher than this? Absolutely. Do I feel like I have enough faith in him to invest a 4th-round pick in Keenan Allen? Probably not. That's too high for me for a guy who has yet to finish a season. So, a lot of things that scare me off of Keenan Allen, and I'm honestly very comfortable having him as a low-end low-end wide receiver 1 with a lot of upside. But I mean, I have to see it first. I'm not investing a 4th-round pick into him. If he falls to the 5th, I'll probably think about it, but not in the 4th. Last two guys, Golden Tate, number 23, Detroit Lions. He is going as the number 30 wide receiver. He gets no respect. He's going as the 11th pick in the 6th round. I have him at 22. Jason, you are saying no respect, but you have him the lowest at 31. CJ the highest at 17. Yeah, you meant to switch him.
I mentioned earlier that I screwed up and switched Keenan Allen with somebody. This is who I was moving up. Golden Tate, I actually had him ranked at 20. Which means I was much more in line with you guys.
Yeah. All right, so really fast, guys. Golden Tate, why should we be taking him so much higher than where he's being drafted on average right now?
I think, well, I'm not highest on him, but I think you should just look at the rapport that he built with Matthew Stafford last year. I know he started off, it started off horrendous. I mean, when they were talking about that he was having trouble picking up the playbook, I mean, that's just something you just don't want to hear. But, you know, it came later on in the middle of the season, going towards the end. He picked it up. Him and Matthew Stafford started getting the connection. Marvin Jones wasn't eating into his numbers, and he started being that guy. So I think going to this season, you got to remember that. And you know, when you get into those 5th, 6th round, and you see him there, you just remember that. And I think depending on what else is out there, I think that's a good pickup for you.
Ever since Golden Tate has moved to Detroit, his receptions have gone up from Seattle. Seattle, they didn't use him all that much. 21 receptions, 35, 45, 64. He goes to Detroit, 99 receptions, 90 receptions, 91 receptions. So they love to throw the ball to Golden Tate. 1,000 yards 2 of the last 3 years. And the year that he didn't get 1,000 yards, he scored 6 touchdowns, whereas the other 2 years he scored 4. So he, as CJ said, he is building rapport with Stafford. Stafford is a very good quarterback, and I think that this is just going to continue to increase. And Golden Tate is sort of the opposite in my mind of Keenan Allen, which is he plays every single game, every single year pretty much. He's missed a few games in the beginning of his career with Seattle, but since he's been on Detroit, he has not missed a single game. So he's tough. He gets a lot of yardage. If he got some more touchdowns, we'd be talking about him being a much higher prospect in fantasy. This is a guy that you could definitely pick up in middle rounds that might get you a much, much higher return.
I'm trying to remember where he finished last year in standard leagues. I was looking at a wrong list. Do you guys have that information right in front of you?
Yeah, hold on. I can tell you.
1 second, Jason. So when you said 1,000 years, you meant 1,000 yards?
1,000 yards. 1,000 yards.
Into the future.
You know what I meant.
And got all of those yardage. I think it's phenomenal if he did do it.
24. Okay, so he did finish as a wide receiver 2 last year.
Yeah, you got it.
And look, bottom line, Golden Tate, he has been very productive. We weren't exactly sure what the split was going to be with Marvin Jones coming in last year, and obviously with Calvin Johnson, one of the true great wide receivers of this decade, retiring, we expected an uptick, and it started off slow, as CJ mentioned, picking up Jim Bob Cooter's new offensive system. It took him a little while to get into it. Marvin Jones, he started off hot, and then as he faded, Golden Tate started to rise, and he finished the year as that number 1 guy. And I think another year in that system, he's going to continue to be that guy. I really like Golden Tate. I like him a lot, especially as a wide receiver 2, and especially a lot as a guy who can get in the 6th round, almost in the 7th round. They upgraded the offensive line, which is going to really help Matt Stafford stay upright and be able to buy time for the wide receivers to get open. They didn't really bring in any threats in the wide receiving game at all. I mean, they got Kenny Golladay in the 3rd round, but I don't think he's going to be a huge threat to Golden Tate's touches. I don't know. Obviously, they have about 1 million running backs there, so they're going to have to pay attention to the running game some amount. I just like Golden Tate as a wide receiver, too, that you can get almost in the 7th round. I think that's amazing value, and a guy that people are sleeping on, so that could be a really nice sleeper pickup for you guys. And I think he takes another step forward this year, because we've seen what he can do once he's comfortable in an offense, especially when he's getting a lot of volume, which we saw when Calvin Johnson would go down with injury, and especially as the year moved on last year. He was getting better and better. Last guy, because we got to get out of here. Number 24, Jarvis Landry. Now,
Juice.
I have him entirely too low, and this is another guy I have to revisit exactly. I'm not sure how it happened. I know
disrespectful.
Well, in my standard, this is standard scoring. So in my standard rankings, I have to see what I did because I know he's higher in my PPR rankings. I have him at 34, which I know he is a slot receiver, and I'm going to make an argument as to why he should be lower, but I don't think he should be that low. I'm going to have to revisit it. CJ, you're, I think, a little bit too high on him, though, at 16. Jason,
I'm too high? This guy from Mr. 34?
I'm saying I'm too low. I'm saying you're too high. Jason is in the middle at 26, which is closer to where he's going right now. We have him as our consensus 24. He's going as the number 23 wide receiver, as the 11th pick in the 4th round. So, one of you guys, take it away. By all means, whoever. High guy, middle guy.
Listen.
This is your guy, man. This is your guy. Go get it.
Yeah, it's my guy. This is my guy. And I'll tell you why he's my guy. Because this dude, he's Mr. Consistent, man. This dude, look, Adam Gates' offense, we saw what the first year is. The man, we just talked about him on the top 100. Dude put in work, man. Dude put in work. And listen, I think, actually, I mean, if I can go into reality a little bit, I think they probably would have advanced the next round if Ryan Tannehill wasn't hurt. You know, that really messed them up. But listen, he get another year in Adam Gates' system, another year working with Ryan Tannehill. This dude is making money and he's working in this offense, man. I don't understand or see how he can be lower than this. I think he's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. I think this is where he belongs, is, you know, getting in there, and I think he will probably even break. He's going to get out of this wide receiver 2 range and start breaking inside the wide receiver 1.
Jason,
let me say the only reason I could see him possibly dropping down closer to kind of where I have him, Julius Thomas. Julius Thomas coming in there gives them another mid-range guy to go to besides the slot. He could suck up some of those receptions. That could be bad. Now, I agree with you. Landry is consistent as heck. Okay, 84 receptions, 110 receptions, and 94 receptions, all 3 of those 3 years that he's been there. Over 1,000 yards the last 2 years. My only knock on him is not a lot of touchdowns, and he's a slot receiver. You don't expect him to score a lot of touchdowns. You expect him to move the ball down the field. So he does what he's supposed to do, and he's very, very good at it. But with Julius Thomas coming in, that could possibly scalp some of those yardage, some of those receptions, especially if Thomas is healthy going into the year.
I'm trying to find where he actually finished in the consistency rankings.
That could be. I don't know. That could be a thing, but I'm just not that concerned with Julius Thomas. I mean, maybe it's just because of recency bias, what I've seen. You know, he's been a very inconsistent player ever since leaving, Denver. So, yeah. I mean, I can see maybe it, but it's just hard for me to conceive that idea of him doing that because what I've seen him be so bad recently.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, you got to remember he was injured too. I mean, he played hurt most of last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as you out there on the field, that got nothing to do with me. I mean, you out there, so you showing me that you can play.
Anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm too low on him. I'm going to move him up, but I think that he is much more of a PPR weapon than he is in standard leagues for a number of reasons. For starters, through his career, he hasn't been that guy as far as yardage. He's gotten over 1,000 yards, which is great, but he's got 4 touchdowns each of the last 2 years. Now, Adam Gase's system has come in. That's great. But I see him really being, kind of like Jason said, that short to intermediate guy because he is. He plays that slot role. He's 5'11". He's shifty. He's really good. He's explosive. But the outside guys, we know Kenny Stills, which they re-signed. They have, obviously, Devontae Parker, which a lot of people are assuming he's going to take that next step. Julius Thomas comes in, is going to be yet another one of those short to intermediate range guys. He can also run, and he's going to be much more of a red zone threat. So I don't really see the touchdowns going up for Jarvis Landry. So I think he finishes as a wide receiver 2. I just don't see the wide receiver 1 upside in standard leagues. Now in PPR, throw that out the window. I could see him being easily a low-end wide receiver 1. I mean, look at his production the last 2 years. 94 receptions last year in a new offense, and kind of a down year from 2015 where he had 110 receptions. So, that's great. And, you can attribute that to injuries to the quarterback, new offensive system. I see no reason why he can't at least keep around 100 receptions. But I don't see the touchdowns going up, or I could honestly even see the yardage dropping because I don't know if he gets used as much because other receivers could be taking the next step. It's perplexing And I just don't know if the ceiling's really there. Again, I don't know why I have him at 34. I have to go back and look at it. He should be higher than this, but I don't see him being up where you have him at 6. Well, I don't know. I see him probably around 20. So 16 might be not outside the realm of possibility, but I don't know. That's kind of my hold up. He was also not wildly consistent last year. He, new system again. He finished as the wide receiver 43 in the consistency ranking, so it's concerning. Anything you guys want to add before we move on?
No, I'm good.
No, I
think
mean,
we're good.
Jarvis Landry, though, okay, he's going as the 11th pick in the 4th round. Is that good value to you guys? Would you be happy getting Jarvis Landry there?
Yeah.
Because I could see it. I'd rather get him later, but I could see it.
Yeah. I would not.
That's about right. That's about right. That's about right where he should probably go.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to do it for us today. So please make sure you guys tune in on Friday where we will be jumping into the tight end position, the dreaded tight ends. So this should be fun. Yeah. Wow.
The world was that.
It was. I mean, he said dreaded, so I was like,
Ooh.
I was just thinking like Albert Hitchcock would something like that.
Anyway, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show. iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict. It works. We are all over the place. Give us a rating. Give us a review. That's an easy, non-financial way you can help the show out immensely. Help us move up search boards. Get us in front of more people. Help us continue doing what we're doing. If you like the product that we are giving you, please help us keep doing it. Again, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can find us on Twitter at theFFFanatics, or you can follow us individually. I'm at GPalmerFFF. CJ is at CJ Hickman89. Jason is at JaceCabrera13. And again, if you really want to go that extra step and support the show, get yourself a bonus episode every single week, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. A lot of other perks as well. Show we're going to be talking about today is our wide receiver threes, because there are still plenty of leagues that use the old school standard format where they have the wide receiver 3 position instead of a flex. Or we're going to be moving on to flex/waiver wire wide receivers. So that's what we're going to be talking about over there, our next tier of ranking. So any parting thoughts before we sign off, guys?
Guys, keep your comments and questions going on YouTube, man. And, send us some stuff so we can be able to talk about during the show, Patreon and everything like that.
Yep.
Keep doing that.
Forgot to mention, you can also email them if you prefer to keep it a little bit more secretive.
Do that too.
thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com, or you can direct message us. That's actually what I would say probably 85% of our content comes from, people direct messaging. I guess they don't want people to see their questions or that they're asking the questions or the answer to their question. So
if you're scared, you can do that. We got a nice little section for you. You keep it discreet. What I mean? Just like you're voting. We can do that.
We have a lot of resources available to you, and we hope that you use them, and these rankings will eventually be up on the website as well. All right, so we're out of here. We will talk to you guys on Friday, or we'll see you on the Patreon show if you're heading over that way. So we'll talk to you. We'll see you when we see you. Take care. Bye.
Jim Bob Tudor.
Dude, sir.
His name is Jim Bob. Jim Bob Tudor.
You got some bad toots.
Sounds like you're making fun of his name.